Lovely Saturday morning, June 3rd, 2023. I'm your co-host, Jack Fredericks, editor of GodzillaWins.com, alongside my father, the Godzilla of Truth, John Fredericks, and the degenerate we all know and love, senior contributor to all things sports at GodzillaWins.com, Nate Perry. We're with our esteemed panel of perfect sports predictors today from the Godzilla Wins universe. Our fight guy and senior South Florida lifestyles editor, Patrick Asslaone, is with us here to talk some UFC. We'll be joined later by senior NHL and MLB contributor Dan Angell, and later after that, NBA contributor for Godzilla Wins, James Tillman III. We've got a terrific show for you kind folks today. For the first 40 minutes, that's right, folks, 40 minutes, we're talking UFC 74 in Vegas. We'll take measure after that of the LA Dodgers PR fiasco with my father. Dan Angell will join us for some NHL and MLB picks. And during the last half of the show, James Tillman III will discuss the NBA Finals and will demur if the Heat have any chance of overcoming the number one seed Denver Nuggets. It is the Godzilla Wins Saturday Pick'em show, and it starts right now. All right, everyone, welcome to the show. How you guys doing?
Great, thank you. Thank you very much.
So good.
Super. Never better.
Never better. There we go. So I'm joined here by Nate Perry and Patrick Asslaone to talk UFC Vegas 74. So UFC returns to the Apex after a week off. We've got 13 straight weeks of UFC starting this week with some really interesting and fun cards and main events for the summer, as always. The headline of this card is Kai Kara France and Amir Albazi, which we'll talk about in a little bit. That's a flyweight. But I want to start, as always, is pretty much my favorite segment of the show. It's why I like to start off this way. Patrick and Nate, I want you to give me an undercard fight that you're just jacked up for. We're going to start with our fight guy, Patrick, and then we'll move to Nate.
Thanks. I'm going to go on a little bit of a rant here. Not that I always don't, but I'm going to go on a little bit of a rant. I got bumped from your dad's show yesterday, so I got a lot of pent up energy here. He had a bunch of politicians on making excuses for what they can't do. So he wouldn't let me on because the truth is they would never go back on the show again because I will rip them a new one. So the focus of my intensity is going to be the Andrei Arlovski-Mays fight. Why do I want to see this fight? Because I want to see Andrei Arlovski get highlight knocked out. This is a guy who's got all the physical gifts in the world, all the talent in the world, and he somehow loses to Tim Sylvia, the absolute worst heavyweight champion in the history of heavyweight champions or any weight class of the UFC. He beat him the first time by this miserable leg lock that was just so horrible, you can't even call it a leg lock. Tim Sylvia just quit because he's a coward. So you could tell how high esteem I hold for this guy as a fighter. I think the only reason that the UFC keeps him around is he's capable of delivering a highlight knockout film every time that he fights. And I don't mean him knocking other people out, him getting knocked out because of his glass jaw. So I think he's just a content filler. That's the only fight that I'm really looking forward to seeing because I'd like to see him get his head knocked off. Always
An interesting take from Patrick at this part of the show. One of the reasons I like to do it is he comes in with something a little bit different as far as what he wants to see. Always fun to see some guy get his head knocked off, especially some guy you might not be cheering for. Nate, undercard fight you like here.
Undercard fight that I like. I keep coming back to there were a lot of changes on this fight card. The next one, the Jim Miller Jared Gordon fight, that we're going to talk about next. That's a fight card change. This one's also a sort of short notice spot. Muin Gafurov versus John Castaneda is one that I've been staring at. Gafurov was fighting in the Contender Series and is coming off a loss there, and now he's making his UFC debut on short notice, coming off a loss in a lesser series, and it just looks like a really weird spot for a guy to make their debut in UFC. And I keep looking at it, and he's like not a huge underdog, and I can't understand why. The fight is basically Gafurov plus 110 and Castaneda minus 130. And I just keep staring at it thinking like, that doesn't seem right. Like he's fighting like a real fighter who's a natural sort of bantamweight versus Gafarov, who looks just like a gigantic bantamweight, who's probably going to need to move up to featherweight soon. So I keep looking at that fight, and I just think there's got to be value on Castaneda here, taking a guy who's, probably had a really hard, really abrupt weight cut to get here. He's got a 1-inch height disadvantage, but he's also got Castaneda's got a 3-inch reach advantage, and he's more of a boxer anyways than a grappler. So I just keep coming back to it and thinking that like minus 130 seems like a pretty good price for John Castaneda against a guy who's probably coming off a hard weight cut, took this on short notice, and might just not be ready for, the big time in the UFC yet. So John Castaneda minus 130 is sort of the fight that I'm most interested in, at least from a betting perspective, just to kind of see what that looks like.
Patrick, do you feel confident in Castaneda?
I feel for the same reasons that Nate's talking about. And we keep going back to this about brutal weight cuts. Those things take so much out of you. And it's not just necessarily the cut, but it's the rehydrating that kills you. It really is. And if you've never had dehydration, I mentioned this before, I've been in the hospital 4 times with dehydration. It is horrible. It is absolute a living death misery. And all you have to do is go that couple of ounces too much, and you tip the scale and you're miserable. So yeah, I agree with Nate 100% on that.
Minus 130 for an undercard fight is really not that bad. I mean, there's you can for a favorite, you can lay a lot more juice. You see a lot of these at minus 225, minus 365, stuff like that. So if you like Castaneda there, you might consider him at minus 130. You go to DraftKings.com. If you are in a state that allows DraftKings, you can sign up using the promo code Godzilla. $5 get you 150 in free play. So if you're interested in the UFC, go ahead and use that promo code Godzilla at DraftKings.com. I've got a undercard fight that I'm pretty interested in. Tim Elliott versus Victor Altamirano. And here's why I like this fight. And this is, Patrick, we were talking earlier about how fighters are in some ways kind of a dumpster fire at times, just in their life. And Tim Elliott absolutely personifies what fighters sometimes have to go through. So personal life is a big part of the storyline for Elliott here. He's part of the Glory MMA and Fitness gym, which is a gym run by James Krause. Krause has been blacklisted from the UFC for gambling. No shame in that, but you can't do it if you're in the UFC there. So that's like Elliott's trainer and the guy in his corner. He's always been in his corner, and he won't be this time. That's real. That's not just a personal life issue. When guys aren't in, when you're used to having someone in your corner and they're not there, there's a lot of coaching. If you never watched the UFC, I'm sure everyone who's listening has watched some of it. There's a lot of coaching that goes on. You can hear them. So that's, I think, going to affect Elliott, who can be a little bit unique as a fighter anyway. Also, Elliott's ex-wife, Gina Mazzani, was cheating on him with his best friend and teammate, Kevin Kroom.
Oh, that's bad.
Yeah, which is
Oh, that's
something
bad.
that came up on Twitter. Now, usually here's my thing about Elliott. Like, I don't know. I mean, if it were me, I'd probably be channeling a lot of that rage into my fighting. So we'll see. Here's the thing about Elliott, just as a fighter, if you've never watched him, and I don't know, Patrick, maybe you have, and I think this is also flyweight. So they're all small in flyweight. He does like somersaults. I mean, he's a crazy sort of unorthodox fighter. So he's an awkward striker. He's a gritty wrestler. He likes to fight. You can tell he likes to brawl, but he keeps these opponents on their heels sometimes because he spends a lot of time doing almost like cartwheels, these high leg kicks that just, he's jumping around a bunch. He'll take you down. He'll bring you back up. So he's really comfortable in the awkward, which not every fighter is. Altamirano, one of the issues with Elliott, I guess we'll start there, is even though he likes ugly fights, he doesn't play any defense. So he leaves his neck open all the time, which can be a problem if you're facing anyone who can grapple, because if you can get him in that rear naked choke, this fight's over. So he's not playing any defense. He presses you completely the whole time. He stands in the middle of the octagon, and he's going to play offense the whole time. Now, Altamirano is vulnerable to takedowns, a little inconsistent, much younger than Elliott, less experienced. He fights like a younger fighter. So if Altamirano can stay sort of patient and not get distracted with all the nonsense, he may have an opportunity to get a takedown and get Elliott in the rear naked choke, but I'm not sure it's going to happen. Elliott's one of the weirdest fighters I've watched in a while. He's minus 175, and I think he probably should be 2-1. So I'm going to take the juice on that minus 175 and go with Elliott there. I don't know if Nate or Patrick, if you have a thought on that fight.
I'm sure Nate has a better insight on the odds. I can tell you about the psychology part here. Keeping it in a weird, strange area is good when you're fighting, as long as the other guy cooperates. Remember, he's got something to say about it too. So if he just puts the brakes on your garbage and you're just doing cartwheels by yourself, it's probably not going to work. The personal problems. We were discussing this earlier. Fighters are some of the most freaking out of their mind people you're ever going to find. Plain and simple. He doesn't have his coach with him to control him. So you're going to say, and I completely agree with you, Jack, about, I would focus all of that rage and intensity into the fight. Well, he's got no way to control him. I can tell you for a fact, when I used to fight 5-7 days before a fight, unless I was going to a press conference escorted by my guys, keeping everybody away from me, I could not be around people, because I was as likely to start a fight wherever I was as I was in the fight, actually in the fight itself. And these guys were working their butts off to keep me in place. When you got a guy who is absolutely on his own and doesn't have that mentor figure controlling him, it's just as bad as it is good. So that's a huge factor that I would put against Elliott in this fight.
Yeah, and I think that's why he's not 2-1. So my sort of thinking, and Nate, you can hop in here too, is that I'm not going to let the personal life stuff affect how I handicap the fight too much. Elliott is just a better fighter than Altamirano. And so I think that you're catching lower odds because of all the personal life stuff that's going on. But you're right about not having the corner man there, being able to control his energy. I just think, and I think this is probably like minus 210 if he's not having these personal life issues. So I just kind of like getting the minus 175 because I don't think this is really an upset. Elliott is a good fighter. He just is unorthodox. And I'm not sure Altamirano has the maturity to control the fight the way you're saying he can. Someone should be able to in order to beat Elliott.
I mean, I guess for me, like looking at it, it just seems like Elliott just hasn't fought very much recently. So I think that's like also always true, like sort of like something that like we talk about. So it's like, he's got all like this sort of like out of the ring distractions, but he also like fought like once last year, so, and he fought like twice last year, like the year before that. Like he just doesn't fight very often. So like, I don't know, you're getting sort of a younger guy who's like a lot more active right now. So I don't, some of this feels like, we like the shiny object betting on like Elliott, at big odds because he's, kind of a flashy striker and does weird stuff, but he's also just sort of like the older, relatively inactive fighter fighting a guy that's like sort of up and coming.
Yeah. And we'll see. This would be a wake up call if Elliott were to lose. Dad, one of the things for me, in order to wake up, I need some Beard Vet coffee. Can you tell us a little bit about Beard Vet coffee?
I tell you what, I travel with it. I don't know about you guys, but I can't take now this hotel coffee. I just can't deal with it. So I have to travel with it. I just said, can I go make a cup of coffee? So when I travel, I get a little mini Keurig. I bring that. When I'm on my travel bus, we have a whole elaborate setup. Well, I can't drink this garbage coffee. After you drink Beard Vet, you just can't do it. The difference is so vast. So Look, folks, go to beardvet.com, beardvet.com, put a promo code Godzilla. That's going to give you another 10% off. And you can get the bags of coffee, you can get the beans, or you can do what I do. I'm in a hurry. I don't have time to make it except on the weekends in the carafe and all that. So I just throw in the K-cup. Thing I love about Beard Vet, not only the taste is so fantastic, but Sean George and Kenny Lee started this company. They served tours in Iraq and Afghanistan. They couldn't get a good cup of Joe. They came back and said, we're going to make our own coffee. They donate a portion back to veterans organizations. But I got to tell you, they have different ones. Get what you want. I love the dark roast. So I get that. Just go to beardvet.com, beardvet.com. And if you want to save another 10%, just pop in promo code Godzilla. It's there, beardvet.com. You're going to love it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm drinking it right now as well. Thank you, Dad.
So am I.
Yeah, I figured. Okay, so we're gonna go to the Miller Butler.
We need to.
fight.
I need to get Patrick. I got to get you some beard vet, right?
I
So
love
when
it.
we're-
I'd love it. Please.
So as soon as we're done, just text me your home address there, and I'll get it out today.
Thank you.
And the reason why you got bounced yesterday was not because we didn't want you on, because you got to have a Skype address when you do TV. They don't allow just call in except if you're Trump. So tell Teresa to get you a Skype address like everybody else in the world, and then you can come on TV just like this.
Yeah,
Just
great.
setting the record straight.
I know. I was
Yeah.
just breaking you.
I know you were.
I figured you would. Okay, so let's go on to Miller versus Butler here. And this is a fight where Butler took this fight on 24 hours notice after Jared, help me out. I forget his last name.
Gordon.
Gordon.
After he dropped out of the fight. So Butler's taking this with 24 hours notice. It's a catch weight division, most likely because Butler didn't have time to cut weight. So Patrick, set us up here. This is a fight I'm really interested in. What do you like in the Miller Butler fight?
Well, Gordon dropping out really screwed me up here because he reportedly had a slight concussion, which there's no such thing as a slight concussion. And if somebody walks in with something like that, I was ready to watch him get his head taken off. So him backing out screwed up my pick. Jesse Butler. I don't really see any problems with this kid. He's on a 5-fight win streak. He's fighting real well. I'm a huge Jim Miller fan. The guy's got the most fights in the history of the UFC, 41 fights, the most victories, 24. People out there will say something to the effect of, well, he's getting older. And I've said this to people before, age doesn't make a difference to me as long as you've taken care of yourself. The problem is I'm not so concerned as much of his age as I am about the training for the 41 fights, not counting the dozen or so that he had before he got to the UFC. So the actual training, the injuries involved concern me a lot more than anything else. He's 3-2 in his last 5. I think this is a huge opportunity for Butler to sneak in under the radar and take a victory from Miller. As much as I freaking hate that, I'm going to go with Butler.
Plus 200 money line outright win for Butler. Nate, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, now it's moving even more. It's plus 220 now.
Oh wow.
I don't know. I mean, my gut instinct here is like just take Miller for like a lot of the kind of reasons that we talk about when we do a lot of these fights. It's like, I mean, 24 hours notice just isn't very much time to, like get your head in a fight. I mean, especially like UFC debut, it's on the main card. It's not even an undercard fight. And you just found out you're doing it 24 hours ago. I mean, is he even going to have any adrenaline left in the tank? I mean, it must have just started, a day ago when they told him about this, I mean, there's just like no recovery time for something like this. It feels like, I feel like if Butler's gonna win, he's got to do it like really early, right? I mean, before like he's just out of gas. So there's a part of me that thinks, maybe if you're gonna bet Butler, just do it, that he just wins, by TKO or by submission, really early on, because I can't see him hanging around this for a decision the entire way. I think I'd be more comfortable either taking him by submission at plus 450, which seems like his most likely path to victory for Butler if you're going to do it, or by KO TKO, DQ plus 1,000. My instinct would be don't fool around with that and just take Miller to win and lay the heavy juice. He's just so much more experienced. He's actually been preparing for this fight. A change of opponent probably won't affect him as much because he is so experienced, like Patrick was talking about. So my instinct would be to just take Miller and lay the juice. If you really want to get crafty with Butler, I think he's got to stop this fight inside the distance. I don't think he can go to a decision.
Yeah. So the thing you got to worry about, I guess, with Miller is the fight IQ, just the ability to control the pace, to control his adrenaline, and to basically do what he's done his entire career, which is just grind out wins. He lost to Hernandez a while ago, but was a little too aggressive in that fight, I thought. If he can control the grappling and be defensive, he'll be fine. He really doesn't. I mean, that's the thing with someone like Miller in a situation like this. You don't have to really go on the offense because Butler's going to come out there he's an aggressive fighter anyway. And in the octagon on a UFC main card, there's not going to be a feeling out. I mean, Butler's just not going to spend the first 2 minutes jumping around. He doesn't do that anyway. He fights on the UFC. This is Butler. He fights on the UFC Louisiana circuit. And if you've watched any of those fights, he just goes right at you. So he doesn't do a lot of that. He likes to brawl. He'll get in the middle of the octagon in the center there. And he's got a pretty solid chin. So he doesn't mind taking those punches from Miller. Miller's a good striker too. He's going to try to wear down Miller. And basically the way I feel about this is if he can use his chin, this is Butler, to wear down the striking, then maybe he can get the game to the ground. But I don't know. I mean, Miller's got a crafty ground game too. When I look at this fight, minus 245, it just feels like a lot of chalk for me. So I'm going to go with Butler at 2-1 odds. Even the 25 hours notice thing just doesn't really worry me that much, especially because he didn't have to cut weight. This is something that if I had never met Patrick and we didn't do this every week, I might be a little bit more like, oh, well, 24 hours notice. But the more I talk to Patrick and other fighters, the more it just seems like these guys are always ready for a brawl. And maybe they need to get in their headspace a little bit. But I'm not even sure controlling their adrenaline is that big of a deal. If you're ready for your opportunity, you're ready for your opportunity. It's not like he's 22 years old. I mean, I think he's in his 30s. He's not the youngest fighter in the world. So I don't know. I mean, I just think there's too much chalk for me, and I kind of like Butler at plus 200. Patrick?
Jack, to Nate's point, and Nate has a great point about the 24-hour notice. But also, for every one of these fights that are going to be televised, there's feelers that are out there for guys. Hey, in case we need you, can you go? So and just as we talked about a lot of these guys being completely unstable, that also works with you for a fight on very short notice, because I was chomping at the bit. I'd fight anybody. I didn't care what weight class it was. I didn't care what it was. On my first fight, I took 3 days notice against Pat Miletich in a freaking baseball stadium in Four Corners, Iowa. I didn't care. I just wanted to bang. So that works for you also. But Nate makes a great point. Some people, the octagon shock is real, and it does affect them. But I don't think it's going to be with the way this kid fights, just coming straight out at people. It doesn't matter if he's in a freaking gym, in an alley, or in front of 15,000 people. He's going to fight the same way.
Yeah. That's kind of the way I think. He's from West Monroe, Louisiana, and those Louisiana boys are kind of crazy.
It's brutal.
Yeah. That's like a real, fight circuit. I mean, just fighting out of Louisiana. A lot of good fighters come out of there. So I like Butler here, but I understand Nate's trepidation. Okay, so we got 2 more fights we want to cover here. We got some featherweight veterans in Alex Caceres and Daniel Pineda. Caceres is 34, Pineda is 37. So both kind of, I would consider those ages like in the prime of their careers, maybe a little past prime, but 37, like Patrick says, not that old. Caceres won 6 of his last 7 bouts. Pineda's been fighting since 2007. Patrick, what do you see in the Caceres Pineda featherweight fight on the main card?
I see Caceres as having a lot more ways to win. I think he's a lot more well-rounded fighter. He's got a ton of experience. He's fought a lot harder competition. Pineda, just watching him, Pineda in his last 5 fights is 2 wins, 1 loss, and 2 draws. That's serious inconsistency. And people can say whatever they want about judges. Look, you leave things in the judges' hands, you have nobody to blame but yourself. Because most of these judges have no idea what they're looking at. So you've earned your 2-1-2 record in your last 5 fights. I've been watching Pineda a lot, at least what you have on him. He's very lazy with his defense on striking. He doesn't follow through on his kicks. It's very lazy stuff. You run into a guy like Caceres and you throw a half-ass leg kick and spin around, turn your back to him going 50%, you are going to end up on the ground. And that's probably not where he wants to go on the ground with him. Not that he's a terrible ground guy, but when you expose yourself in those kind of situations, which I'm going to tell you Caceres is looking to take advantage of, you're already starting out in a miserable place. You're not starting off at a 50-50 position in a guard where somebody's facing you. So I'm really concerned about Pineda's goofy, lazy sort of follow through on his strikes, which could really hurt him. I would go, my pick is going to be with Caceres, and I'm going to go knockout.
Nate, any interest in that? The Caceres to win by knockout, TKO, or DQ is like plus 275, I think. Plus 250.
I think I had some interest in that for sure. I mean, I think that, you know, my mind was just sort of going towards the under 1.5 rounds. It feels like this is probably one that, you know, could end relatively quickly. Just given their sort of styles, where Pineda seems to kind of want to put pressure on people, but he's also not great defensively, like Patrick was saying. It just seems like he opens himself up to a lot more sort of issues dealing with all the weapons Caceres presents. So, you know, but you know, if Caceres somehow gets caught, you know, I think I'd be more comfortable taking the under 1.5. This fight ends pretty quickly than maybe Caceres by knockout. Just, you know, out of respect for both fighters, I think, you know, the under seems like a little bit of a better play, and you're still getting plus money at plus 145.
I like the under at plus 145, and I like Caceres by TKO, KO, or DQ at plus 250. If you're really feeling feisty, Pineda by KO, TKO, and DQ is plus 700. You know, I think the only way Pineda wins, Patrick, is just throwing one of those sort of powerful overhands that he just connects, and Caceres just gets knocked out. I don't really think on the ground Pineda has what it takes. And I also, you know, from watching Pineda, I agree with you. He is kind of lazy. And the thing that Caceres likes is those head kicks. I mean, he knocked out, he's knocked people out by just, he's lanky. He's only 5'10", but for flyweight, that's pretty big. And he really, those leg kicks, he gets up there, and if he connects, the guy's down and it's over. So Pineda, I don't know if he has the discipline to be blocking those all the time, especially if he's sitting around trying to attack and trying to throw strikes on a guy who's bigger than him. I mean, the only way to me that he gets there is he plays good defense, and then he is patient and takes his sort of opportunity to hit the combos in the striking, because Caceres is so much bigger than him. So if he can get in there and, you know, boom, boom, combo, okay, back off. All right, block the leg kick, go in, boom, boom, combo. But like you say, I just think Pineda's too lazy to do any of that. I think this fight probably ends in the first round.
I get really concerned about that lazy defense, and everybody listening can watch his fights again. Can watch Pineda's fight against Cub Swanson, and you can see when he spins through kicks. It's really, and there's no other better term for it than half-ass. He's just not really executing. And a guy like Caceres, with the kind of experience he has, is going to time that. And when he sees Pineda spin a couple of times, trust me, when Pineda's spinning through to come back to face him, there's going to be a leg kick coming up to his head. It's going to be there. It's going to be there to meet him when he faces him. And that's the kind of thing that I get really, and we've talked about this with many fights, about guys being lazy defense, goofy defense. They inevitably get caught. and it hurts because they're simply just, they're not on top of the game. You've got to defend yourself the whole time. And if you're not, you're going to get hurt. And whenever I see people with lazy stand up like that, I'm always betting against them.
Yeah, I tend to agree, and I think me and Nate are on the same page there as far as the pick. So we really like that under at -1.5. And if Caceres is able to pull off the knockout, he's going to be able to cash out a little bit of prize money. And Dad, in order for him to maximize his wins, he's going to need something like Birch Gold. Can you tell us a little bit about Birch Gold?
You bet. You know why? Because right now, look, if you've got retirement and you want to see, I want to retire. I love being on this show. I love running my radio stations. I love having Patrick on, but I'm 65, right? I'm not going to be doing this, getting up at 3:30 forever. But the key is you got to have something there when you retire. Now, right now, ask yourself this question. Why are central banks, Patrick knows this, why is every central bank across the world buying up gold at record levels? Because they know the dollar's at risk. They know the petrodollar's at risk. We just passed another insane budget with no cap on the debt, another $5 to $6 trillion in debt. What do you think that's going to do to inflation? That's going to eat away at everything you have. Gold is the only thing that you can depend on that goes up when everything else goes down, or at least it's still going to be there stable. And the only company that I'll do business with, only one that me and your mom do business with, is Birch Gold. Why? Rates are reasonable, service is phenomenal. So you can take your 401k, your pension plan. I actually found out I had a pension plan from Advo, Jack, shocking me. Ann's got one. We found that out. You start to retire, you start figuring all these things out. Pension plan, IRA, 401k, you can shift a portion of it over as much as you want into precious metals. And like silver, I like gold. We got our own reasons. Both of them are going to be very good hedges against the calamity that potentially is coming if things go south with his debt. All you got to do, get the information you need. Be informed. How do you do that? You text me, Godzilla, that's easy, to 989898. Do it now. It'll take you 15 seconds. Just go to your phone, put in 989898, put in Godzilla. They're going to send you a 20-page info kit. You look it over and you decide what's best for yourself and your family. I've been in some tight spots, right? Everybody knows that. Really tight spots. Don't want to go there again. Want to be able to retire. Just do Godzilla Wins. See Joe running around in the minor leagues. Got to have the jack to do that. Godzilla, 989898, no obligation. You're good to go. Take it from me. Best 20 seconds you're going to spend.
Yeah, tight spots is an understatement. So we're glad you've been partnering with Birch Gold to rectify some of those tight spots.
Tight spots.
Found everyone in, including me. Thank you. Okay, so let's
wait a second. I got something else to say. I got to just interject it here. I just want everybody to know that my son, Jack, who you're seeing right now, just won the school teacher of the year in his district in Mississippi. Now, he won the award for teacher of the year at his high school. And now he's won the award for teacher of the year in his school district, as well as winning a prestigious fellowship with the premier education academic research institution in America. So Jack, congratulations. I'm very proud of you. These are tremendous awards, and the passion and the desire that you have to help your students and change their lives is phenomenal. So great job. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Maybe we can spend some time at another time talking about education. Let's move on to the podcast.
I'm not going to apologize for being proud of my son. I'm simply not going to do that. Ann and I are very proud of you and what you've done and the passion that you have for teaching. And these are great accomplishments. So good job.
Thanks. Yeah, I love teaching. That's my career. Okay, so let's go on to the flyweight main event here between Kara Kai France and Amir Albazi. This is basically pick 'em for this fight, two evenly matched fighters. Patrick, we'll start with you. What do you like in this main event flyweight bout, which is not a title fight? So kind of interesting. It's been a long time since they've had a flyweight main event that's not a title fight.
Yeah, that's strange, especially considering if you look back in the history of the UFC, they had one of the greatest fighters in the history of fighting, and they generally got rid of him because they didn't want his weight class. They said nobody watches the lighter weights, yet somehow the lighter weights are now headlining a fight card. God, who knows? France, better striker. He's coming off a loss. Definitely wants to keep it on his feet. His last 5 fights, he's 3-2, so it's a little up and down there. He's got a lot more big fight experience. Albazi, though, is a much better grappler, literally elite grappler. Phenomenal cardio, pushes the pace. 5-0 in his last fights. I've got to go with Albazi on this. I love guys who push the pace. I love cardio guys. You can get away with a lot of stuff when you've got phenomenal cardio. You can run away a lot, especially against strikers. You can neutralize their striking, making them chase you because you're not getting hit. You're making them come forward. You're making them swing. You're making them miss. If you've got excellent movement and great cardio, you can avoid an awful lot of damage. And then I just love the fact that Albazi just pushes and pushes and pushes, and he's always in your face. And I'm always going to go with the grappler, especially in a 5-round fight. A guy who can push a pace like that, sooner or later, they just end up wearing you down. The takedowns, the letting you up, the takedowns, the getting up, it really wears people out, especially people or fighters, I should say, that are predominantly strikers. For some reason, I don't know why I've seen the pattern of affecting primarily stand-up fighters, how it affects them worse than it does grapplers, just because being a grappler, that's all we've ever done since we were kids, was take people down and get up and keep doing it over and over and over again. So we're sort of used to the conditioning. I'm going to go with Albazi here. I don't think it's going to go 5 rounds, but I'll go Albazi by submission.
Okay, Albazi by submission. Nate?
I absolutely that was, you took my pick, Patrick. I like
Damn it,
Albazi
man,
by
I'm sorry.
submission as well.
Foiled again.
It's plus 240. So, you know, if you like Albazi just to win, it's minus 120. If you want to juice it up a little bit, submission's probably his most likely path to victory, at least according to the odds, and that's plus 240. And I like it too for a lot of the reasons you said. I mean, Kara France's takedown defense is good, but he's just like not on the same level grappling, and Albazi can kind of do both. And, you know, he obviously wants to get this to the mat, and I suspect he probably will at some point, just because he's so relentless. So yeah, I mean, that's basically, you know, what my sort of feel for it was too, was that, you know, and Albazi's like also like a guy that's hungry, right? He sort of has a reputation that I've read about where it's like people don't want to fight him in the division. So this is a huge spot for him as well to sort of show, like, you know, to make himself unavoidable. You know, you start getting some high profile wins and suddenly people can't duck you anymore.
It says a lot, Nate, when people don't want to fight you. There's a lot that says a lot without saying a word.
Right. So I mean, you go out and you make a statement, you submit Kai Kara France, and, you know, then suddenly everybody has to fight you, you know, after you win a main event card.
Yeah, I think the problem that you guys are ignoring is Kai Kara France's footwork, which is, I think, exceptional. I think that he's someone who can avoid a lot of the takedown attempts. I understand, you know, these wrestlers, they get in the mode, they see an opportunity to attack, and they get to the ground, and then once they're there, it's their fight to lose. I think Kai France is a little bit more disciplined. I think he has really solid footwork. I think he's an explosive striker. I've seen him knock out a couple guys in his last couple of fights. For someone who's pretty small in the flyweight division as far as height goes, I mean, he can really hit. And when he does make contact, those guys go to the ground, and they might get up, but then he starts to attack. And what I really like in this fight, because I'm going to go completely different than y'all. I like Kai Kara France to win by KO, TKO, or DQ at plus 400. And I also kind of like the under 3.5 rounds, because I just don't think that this fight is going to go more than 3.5 rounds. I don't think it's going 15 minutes. I think Kai Kara-France is pretty aggressive. And I just think that his footwork is good enough where he can fend off some of those takedown opportunities that Albazi is going to be looking for. And if he connects on one of those explosive strikes, it's over. And I love betting guys who do that because when you get 4-1 odds on a guy who, when he connects, you go down. I like those odds better than I like pretty much anything else. So that's my pick right there. Kai Kara-France. But I understand. I mean, look, I watched Albazi and he was just, I mean, he's incredible. 16-1 in the UFC, and very patient, very smart fighter. So we'll see.
I'll say one thing, Jack, and your point is phenomenal. And I think it all depends on what Albazi does. Does Al chase the takedown, or does he allow France to come at him? Because if he allows France to come at him, France has to be planted to throw his strikes, which is the most vulnerable place a striker can be when you're dealing with a really good takedown guy. So I guess it all depends on what that game plan is. I think if he chases him, Jack, absolutely, this guy may get his head knocked off. If France is doing the chasing, it's takedown city.
Yeah,
Right.
and France is pretty aggressive.
And the other thing is, we know that like France doesn't even need to be like on the ground to get submitted. When Royval beat him in 2020 via guillotine choke, they were standing up. They were both just on their feet. So, you know, there's also that.
Yeah,
You
I mean,
walk
I
into
just
something.
Yeah, I mean, I think he does leave his neck open because he is an aggressive fighter. And I mean, look, I watched Albazi fight a couple times, just in preparation of this. He's incredibly fast. He's got great cardio. He's really a dangerous fighter and probably I mean, this wouldn't be a main event fight if the UFC wasn't thinking whoever wins this fight is going to challenge for the belt. So we'll see. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I think this fight's going to be really interesting. It might not last more than 3.5 rounds. I kind of like the under there, but I do think it's just going to be a really entertaining fight with two guys with pretty good IQ, great cardio, good footwork. One guy who can hit hard, the other guy who's going to, submit you if he gets you to the ground. So, we'll see. Okay. So I want to thank Nate and Patrick for, as always, the UFC stuff. They'll be sticking around, talk some other stuff as well. But as of right now, Dad, we want to spend a couple minutes here. And before we get into this, because I'm going to shift some things around in the schedule. But what I really want to talk about is right now you're at a conference at Hofstra for radio show hosts. And just give us a couple minutes on what you're doing out there and what you were able to share with everyone at that conference.
Well, this is the annual conference. It's called Talkers. It's put on by Talkers Magazine, which is the trade journal for basically radio talk show hosts across America. Of course, our business has changed because of podcasting now and other digital means, but it's always good to get together with your peers, see what they're doing, see what the big companies are doing, like Odyssey, whose stock is at 9 cents. So it kind of makes us laugh because here we are. We own all these radio stations and nobody can figure out the model we have. And the big company stocks at 9 cents and 18 cents and Salem's at $1.03. So it's kind of interesting. But, the big talk is, where is radio going, especially in talk and also sports, et cetera. And I think the consensus here at the conference is, Ford capitulated. They were going to take AM radios out of cars. We threatened to Bud Light them and they caved. And so AM radio is staying in cars. But look, at the end of the day, 80 million people tuned into AM radio in 2022, according to Nielsen. There's only 320 million people in the United States documented. I don't know how many are undocumented, but 320 documented. That's a quarter of all Americans, right, are listening to AM radio. That is a huge number. So AM FM is not going anywhere. That was kind of the one thing that came out of it. But when we got to this segment, which I was on a panel for, the future of talk radio and sports and how it combines, and I was trying to explain to people what we're doing, what Godzilla Wins does, and how betting on athletics now legally in the states that have it is a $40 billion business. And there's three sets of audience. There's those that the wise guys of Vegas that are, betting $2,000 on, the Pirates this afternoon. That's not our audience. Then there's the millennials and the Zoomers that are over, I guess, 21. So I guess that would be just the edge of the Zoomers. There's the millennials and the Zoomers that, like to bet $5 in-game parlays and things of that. That's not necessarily the growth audience. What I was saying there is the growth audience is the casual adult bettor that likes to bet his team like I do. I bet the Titans every week. I bet the Astros almost every night. And they want to bet $50, $75, $25 a game. And this is really where the growth is, and nobody's capturing it but us. And but I wouldn't say that they got it. And what they've done instead is they've gone with these syndicated handicapping shows, which if you've ever tried to get through one, are horrible. I mean, I just think ours is so much better. So, a couple of the radio owners were asking me about it and even talked about picking up our show and getting some their own sponsors for it, because the ones that are offered, they get on there, they do rapid fire, they give you all these stats, and they're not entertaining, right? And they're either fighting with each other or whatever. So I think what we've got here is a unique proposition. That's why Godzilla Wins it started basically as a Harkin idea that, with a football blog has grown to the extent it is. And I think we got a great future ahead of us.
Yeah. Nate, you've grown up in Nevada. I lived there for a long time. So we're used to hearing syndicated touts basically on the radio. And they, as far as the entertainment level, it's so difficult to be entertained by someone who's selling you a $75 packet of games for the day and then telling you that their ROI is plus 65% or whatever, and there's no transparency, there's no way to check that. It's just some guy being like, send me $70 and I'll give you a winner, which I think is why we really try to structure the show a little differently, where we're not just talking picks.
I mean, totally. I mean, yeah, sports talk, like the tout radio stuff, it's usually, especially in football season, it's like every morning, Saturday and Sunday morning. And it's just, it's, I guess, good radio in the sense that they spend an hour talking about something and never actually say anything. They never give out a single pick on the air.
Yeah.
They'll talk a little bit about previous results. We had a big winner with the Titans last week or whatever. They'll never talk about what they're betting that current week. And then the rest of it is just promotion. It's just, we have information nobody else has, which isn't true because we have the internet. We have proprietary systems, which isn't true. They're just total hustlers. So yeah, I mean, it is fun to do a show where, like we actually do put, our stuff on the line and do, sort of make picks and put ourselves out there versus these guys that really they don't.
No, I think you're right. I think it's the transparency of it, right? You listen to these syndicated handicapping shows and they'll give you, oh, here's my free pick. But if you really want my premium pick, go here, $75. So what's your free pick? It's not the premium pick. It's the garbage pick. So what, I'm going to bet that and lose, and then to make it up, I got to spend $75. I mean, the whole thing's a sham. And this is really what they do. And they've been getting away with it, but it's not entertaining radio. I think the difference here is two things. You're getting great analysis from people that actually follow this stuff. Nate, you make a great point. Oh, we have information. That's baloney, right? Everything is up on social media. There's no information that you have that no one else has. Not like maybe back in the day, and or if you're Alabama baseball and you're calling your guy up in Cincinnati saying, hey, my number one starter just went down with a bad elbow 15 minutes before start a game. I'm putting in somebody that's never started a game against Louisiana State. Okay, that's inside information, right? That's why the guy got fired. And the other thing we do is there's a transparency in the legacy of our picks. Like when you go to my MLB picks, every day I'm going to tell you what I did last night and what I did for the season. What you find out with these other guys is if they have a winner on Monday night, that's all they talk about. They might have went, 1-10 on Sunday, but they'll talk about the winner on Monday night. And you never really know what the record is. There's never a accumulation, right? And the only time they'll ever give you their season is if it's straight up. Like anybody can do that. I mean, if I wanted to just bet straight up, I'm 35 games over 500 in the MLB, but I'm only up $500 or $600 because you got to lay odds. So to say I'm 35 games over, the hell's that mean if you're not doing it against the odds? So I think we have without a doubt we have hit on something here. That's why I think we're going to be very successful. We have a very unique offering, and that's why our audience is continuing to build.
Yeah, and we're gonna move on here in a minute. Patrick, I'll let you get in your 2 cents, but we've got some MLB and Stanley Cup stuff that we want to do to keep ourselves on schedule. But yeah, I mean, we do have a sort of what we're trying to do is a little bit unique. Nate, I have, if you'll do this for me, we'll return to this in the last 5 minutes of the show. Nate, will you pull up your texts with one of those touts who gets your numbers from, Nevada? Like just have that text thread ready from one of those guys that's like, Nate, I've got the information no one else has. At the last 5 minutes of the show, we'll have you kind of read. I know sometimes you have conversations with those guys because they won't leave you alone. Patrick, I know you've been in this industry for a minute. If you want to just round out this conversation very quickly, and then we'll get to Dan.
Yeah, real quick. I think what also all these big syndicated shows or these national TV shows, radio shows are terrified of saying something because God forbid they get freaking canceled. We don't care. We're not offending anybody. We're giving our opinion. People want to hear your opinion. They don't want to hear the cookie cutter explanation that everybody's giving them. If you go on YouTube right now and you pull up the fights that's happening tonight, all these goofballs are saying exactly the same thing. Everything. And they've never fought before. They have no idea that what it's even like walking into a fight. They have no clue. And I think that's what separates us from everyone else.
Yeah, I think so too. So one thing I want to shout out a listener in Pittsburgh, one of our stations, Pittsburgh News, on WCNS AM 1480 and 107.7 FM. Also, there's simulcast on WXJX AM 910 and 98.7 FM. The listener says we're coming in loud and clear in Pittsburgh, so very happy for that. I know Dad's been working hard on his stations in Pittsburgh, so very happy to hear that. Okay, before we move on to some of Dan's stuff, Patrick and Dad, if you'll tell us a little bit about targettrading.co.
Go to Patrick.
Yeah. Come to me. I'll teach you how to trade. Let's see. This week we were 28, 18, and 3. Now, it was a rough week. First time in my history I ever had a day without a win. 0-5 on Tuesday. We then made a big comeback, so we did pretty well at the end of the week. And what you guys were talking about before, transparency, where these guys go on, they give you free picks. If you think it's expensive now, wait till it's free. Then you're going to find out exactly how expensive things are. You come to me, I am giving you levels to trade off of the day before. Nobody else in the business does this. I have challenged every single one of these hack frauds in the business to trade against us. You're not going to trade against me. You'll trade against one of my students. Name the amount of money you want to trade with. Nobody's ever taken us up on this offer. It's never happened. Ever happened once. There's a reason for it because they're doing exactly what you guys are saying. They're cherry picking results. They don't say what they're going to do and they hide it from everybody. And by the time you sign up, it's too late. So if you'd like to learn how to trade the futures market, go to targettrading.co. Tell us you heard us on the show. We'll give you 15% off.
All right. And that's targettrading.co. Okay. Dan Angell, senior NHL and MLB contributor for Godzilla Wins, is with us. Dan's always locked into baseball and right now the Stanley Cup. My father, Godzilla of Truth, does his baseball picks every day. So we're going to start with some baseball. And I love doing just this rapid fire stuff because it's so much fun. So Dad, well, let's start with Dan. He's been sort of patiently waiting here. Dan, give us a little rapid fire, some baseball, either for today or the weekend that you like, and then we'll kind of go to Dad, and then we'll move to hockey.
All right. So my first pick is going to be Mariners Rangers under 9. I mean, Texas has pitched pretty well for most of the season. It's a pitcher's park, and the Mariners are throwing their top bomb pitching prospect in Brian Wu. He's pitched pretty well at AAA Tacoma. I think he's got a 2.03 ERA at AAA. So I'm thinking the Rangers haven't seen him before. So there's a good chance that this is going to be a fairly low scoring affair. Next one, I'm going to take the Tigers money line at Chicago. Detroit's going off at plus 140 against the White Sox, and Michael Lorenzen just beat the White Sox last week. Granted, that was at Comerica, and this is at whatever they're calling Comiskey this week. But I mean, Chicago is just not good enough to trust at a minus 165 here, especially with that terrible bullpen. So the value that you're getting with the Tigers here is absolutely worth the shot. So the next one, I'm going to go Jose Berrios of the Blue Jays under 4.5 strikeouts. The Mets have the third lowest number of strikeouts in the majors, and Berrios has gone under in 4 of his past 6 starts for Ks. So I'm thinking that New York isn't going to miss too many. So under 4.5 looks pretty good. Next one, I will take some juice here. Yankees money line at Los Angeles didn't work out for me last night because of a 6-run first inning. Brilliant job on your part, New York. But Garrett Cole's on the mound today, and he's been outstanding all season. Getting minus 130 with Garrett Cole is incredibly reasonable juice, even though it is on the road in Los Angeles. So have to back Cole there. Next one, I'm going to go the Guardians under 3.5 team total runs, because Cleveland just can't hit. I mean, we all know it. Cleveland gets up there. They're lucky to get more than 2 runs in a game. And Sonny Gray has pitched pretty well this year. He's only allowed more than 2 runs once all season. So there's a pretty good chance that he shuts down the Guardians' weak lineup. And finally, I'm going to go with Ryan Nelson under 4.5 strikeouts for the Diamondbacks. He's only topped that number once all season, and that was against Oakland. We all know how bad the A's are. He's facing the Braves tonight. The Braves are just a middling team as far as making contact, but he's not a strikeout pitcher. He's got a ERA over 5, so there's a good chance that Atlanta gets to him early, and I just don't think he's going to hit that number. So to recap it, Mariners Rangers under 9, Tigers on the money line, Jose Berrios under 4.5 strikeouts, Yankees on the money line, Ryan Nelson under 4.5 strikeouts, and the Guardians team total under 2.5.
All right, Dan always does all the research, so you don't have to there. Dad, before we get to you, Nate, let's play a game. So every day, Dad sends his picks to Nate, and he sends them either through text or email, or sometimes it feels like he FedExes them, and they're always
Notes
kind of,
app.
yeah, WhatsApp, like whatever it is. It just they come in. He does hit the deadline often, but they come in a very chaotic way, and then Nate spends a lot of time proofreading them and trying to get them on the website so they look presentable. So before Dad does his picks, Nate, just guess, give me like a prediction. What's Dad who's he gonna pick? Because he picks
All
about
right.
the same 6 teams every day.
Let me pull this up. We're probably going to be taking, we'll be taking for sure the Astros.
Yeah,
They're minus 180, but he's definitely going to be on the Astros. That's just a given. We probably like the Yankees over the Dodgers today. We probably like the Twins over the Guardians. And
Yeah.
I'll say we probably like the Giants over the Orioles to get right.
Possibly a little Blue Jays action, possibly a little opportunity to talk about how much the Chicago White Sox suck. Dad, what are your bets for today?
So first of all, I think Nate should have a theme song. His theme song should be the one by Meghan Trainor, If You Could Only Be Like Me, because he really wants to be like me, Nate, and you're getting there. I do get my picks in on time, but yes, I travel a lot, so God knows how they get in. So you got some of them right, but here's the thing: I'm up $500 for the season, over 500. I'm 30 games over 500. We're into June. I bet a lot of games a day, so I put this record up against anybody because I'm betting 2, 3, 4, 5 games a day against the money line. That's what I do. I do money line, old school. I put this up against anybody, but the key is, right, I don't troll pitchers. I bet streaks. I have an instinct. That's kind of how I go. So some of your picks are right on. So let's go down the line. I like the Blue Jays today in New York, minus 120. Mets keep losing. They beat Verlander last night. This team is not that good. Jose Barrios has been lights out. So I like Toronto minus 120. I'm going with the Twins in the land of 1,000 rakes. So you got that one right. Only minus 125. And I'm with Dan on this. Cleveland doesn't score any runs. I mean, that's the bottom line. Now, the only downside here with the Twins is you got to watch them when their closer pitches. He doesn't go 2 days in a row. So he pitched an inning last night, throwing 105, 2 straight pitches. So you got to be a little careful about that. But I minus 125. Don't lift the gift horse in the mouth. I'm also going, as Nate said, with the Yankees minus 125. I bet Cole until somebody beats this guy consistently. I'm going with them. So especially after the disaster last night, giving up 6 runs in the first inning, Yankees come back here. I like New York minus 125. And I'm taking a big underdog here. I'm sticking with Arizona plus 190 over Atlanta. Hey, Arizona's in first freaking place. I've been telling you guys since the beginning of the season, this is the team to watch. This is the team. They're under everybody's radar screen. They keep winning games. They're very tough in Phoenix. Why am I getting 190 with a first place team against the team Atlanta that's losing every day? They limped out of Oakland. They should have got swept there. This is my game. I love the Diamondbacks plus 190. And I'm going with another underdog. I'm going with the Cubs plus 150 in San Diego. Padres suck. I'm so sick of this team. I keep thinking they're going to go on a winning streak. They're going to go on a winning streak. They never do. They're about to get annihilated in the NL West and go off into oblivion. Darvish, very inconsistent one day to the next. Cubs aren't that good either, but the Padres are losing. Teams that are losing, just get out of the way and fade them. So that's my recap. Cubs plus 150, Diamondbacks plus 190, Yankees minus 125, land of 1,000 rakes, Twins minus 125. And I also love betting the Twins because Correa's hitting $180 and they're still winning. Can't get better than that. And then I like Toronto at New York. The Astro game, I'm not going to lay 180 here. I'm just not.
Oh my God! Like you've never laid 180.
Not in this game because Sandoval is pretty good, right? I like Javier, but it's just not a good value for me at minus 180 tonight because Sandoval for the Angels has actually pitched well, and the Astros have got to have some consistency. They win 2, lose 1, win. You know, they need to get back on a roll, and then I'll get back on them.
Yeah, me and Nate could have guessed most of those games.
I think the reason you're getting such a price on Arizona is because the Diamondbacks have just been beating a bunch of bad teams most of the season. Like the only team that they've faced in the last 3 weeks who's above 500 is Pittsburgh.
You know, Dan, I get what you're saying, but that was what they were saying about the Rays, right? Beginning of the season, Rays won all those games. All I heard was, oh, they beat Oakland 6 games, right? They beat Kansas City 6 games. They're playing bad teams. You know, Tampa Bay is the best team in baseball as far as I'm concerned. The lineup is relentless. The pitching is, I don't know, somebody goes down. They go, I don't know where they go, like at Petersburg, and they shake the pitching tree, and they find other guy I never heard of throws 98, falls out, and then he's the starter. I don't know how this team does it, but they keep doing it. But that's the best team in baseball. So that's the same thing they were saying. Winning is win. You get an L or you get a W, right?
No, you're right. You're right.
They're
and
winning.
As Gary Williams
this
once
is the other
said,
thing, Dan. When you want to be in first place, you have got to beat the bad teams. If you're going to win the division or get in the place, you got to beat the teams you have to beat. Arizona has done that consistently, and so I'm gonna ride the snake train.
No, you're absolutely right about that. And as Gary Williams once said, sometimes a team that's beating bad teams is a good team. But The difference there is with Tampa Bay, we already knew that this team was pretty good because they've done it the last couple of years. I mean, the Rays were in the World Series pretty recently. Arizona 74-88 last year, so it's still kind of a wait and see. But this is a situation where if you're willing to jump on the Diamondbacks and it works, it can be pretty lucrative.
Yeah, he's been all over the Diamondbacks for like a week. I don't know where.
I
this
know.
whole- Yeah, where this whole like I've been telling you about the Diamondbacks all year long. It's like he tuned into one Diamondbacks game like last week and was like, "Oh, these guys are good." And now he's like writing up articles like, "I've been telling you about the Diamondbacks forever." And you know, it's like I mean,
Patrick, here comes the jealousy, right? Here it comes.
It's not jealousy.
I'm
articles.
up 500 on the season. I'm 32 games over 500, Patrick. And here it comes, right? I'm beating the millennials. I'm beating them every day. They don't know what to do. They can't figure out my system. And so they gotta come down here and, you know, look, put your records up. Put your records up. Do a cumulative total. When you get up 500 after picking, 220 games, come back and talk to me.
But there's also a lot to be said for playing down to the level of your team you're playing against. Because maybe, yeah, and I take Dan's point. Absolutely. They're playing a bunch of garbage teams. They're only doing what they have to do to win, because even the best teams in the league, when they're playing garbage teams, are not winning 15-0. They're not, the foot's not on the gas the whole time, just driving them into dust. So yeah, you got to keep on going with them while they're hot, because until somebody starts beating them, they're the best.
Yeah.
Listen, if I can get a first place team at home who is in first place over the Dodgers, and I can get 190 against a team that's losing every day, you got to take that as a value bet of the day. Win or lose, there's some bets you make, you don't care if you lose, because they're the right thing to do. It's just called a value play. Diamondbacks are at home. Diamondbacks are in first place. Atlanta's lost 5 out of the last 6. They're not winning it. They got beat 2 out of 3 in Oakland. Should have got swept. And I'm getting plus 190. Take it all day.
Okay.
You're also facing Spencer Strider, so take that for what it's worth.
Yeah, for real. Like one of the best pitchers in the majors. Look, I'm bored listening to Dad tout his picks. So let's move on. We got James Tillman III with us to talk some NBA finals in a minute here. Very quickly though, because we also got the Stanley Cup. Dan, if you could just set this up for us, Florida Gold versus the Golden Knights in the Stanley Cup. Game 1 tonight, maybe just who you like in game 1 and your overall feel for the series. Although I know sometimes you kind of like to feel things out as the series progresses.
Yeah, and you really kind of have to with hockey, especially with how this playoffs has gone, because Florida, quite frankly, should not be here. The Panthers are playing with house money. It's weird to say this about a series that was a sweep, but they were honestly not the better team in their series with Carolina. The Hurricanes dominated most of the action. They just couldn't solve Bobrovsky. And that sometimes happens where a team gets a hot goalie and that one player makes all the difference. So if Bobrovsky keeps playing the way he has the past 2 series, the Panthers could absolutely steal this. But the Golden Knights are the deeper team, they're the more talented team, and they're the more desperate team, because this Vegas team, the last time they were here, and I mentioned this a little bit in my piece that's going to be up on Godzilla Wins later today, the last time they were in the Stanley Cup Finals, Vegas was an expansion team. They were playing with house money. Nobody expected them to do anything, whereas they were facing the Capitals, who were an older team, and Ovechkin and his guys were thinking, this might be our only shot, and it's proven to be exactly that. But Washington was by far the more desperate team and won that series in 5 games. This Vegas team, they're not just happy to be here. They're on a mission, and I think Florida is just playing with house money. I think deep down, they know that they were a little lucky to get past the past 2 series. They've just had the hotter goaltender. And I think Vegas's depth and determination is just going to be too much. So I'm back in the Golden Knights here.
You like them in game 1?
I do like them in game 1. I think this is probably going to be, I'm gonna say this series goes 6 games, but I like Vegas.
Always, these South Beach teams, Patrick, down there, the Florida Panthers, the Miami Heat. It's been a roller coaster for 2 8 seeds that are just both playing with house money in some ways. Although I think the Heat's house money may have run out. We'll talk about that
I find it quite strange how two of the hottest places in the United States are hosting the NHL hockey championship.
Yeah.
It's strange.
It is. It is. I mean, meanwhile, Canada's now on 30 years and counting without winning a Stanley Cup.
Right. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I mean, to be completely fair, Vegas, that city has embraced the Golden Knights ever since the day they existed, mainly because they were the first major team there. Vegas has always considered itself a pro town without a pro team, and then the Golden Knights show up, and Vegas fans are like, okay, we've got a team to call our own. So what if it's a sport we don't know anything about? Let's learn about the sport because these guys are ours.
The exact opposite of South Florida.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, for South Florida, it might have worked if the Panthers had been there first, but I mean, the Dolphins beat them by several decades, and they came in at the Heat even beat them by a few years, and the Marlins came in at the same time. You can't do that where you're introducing a team into a clogged market and expect it to just work, and it really never has for the Panthers. Whereas the Golden Knights, nobody else was there, so they got that advantage, and that city just loves that team because of it.
Yeah, and I mean, and with Atlanta, it's just weird what sports take. Like Atlanta's soccer team is really popular, but they couldn't keep the Thrashers here. Which when I was growing up, like the Thrashers were, I mean, that was awesome. Atlanta had a hockey team, NHL team. It was a lot of fun, but they couldn't keep them in the city. But that soccer club they love. I mean, they'll never move. People love that soccer club. So
yeah, there's definitely reasons for that. I mean, Atlanta United has done a fantastic job marketing themselves as part of that city. Like, they've planted their flag downtown. They have an owner who the fans trust in Arthur Blank. The Atlanta Thrashers, the story of Atlanta Spirit and what they did to hockey is one of the darkest things that I've ever seen. Like that, those owners did not care about the Thrashers one iota. They barely cared about the Hawks, and they were just a complete mess from top to bottom. Atlanta deserves another chance to make it work at some point, because the failure of Atlanta in the NHL has been because of terrible ownership groups rather than a terrible fan base.
Yeah. However, having grown up in Atlanta, I will say that the fan bases can be not great at times.
Of course, they can be fickle. I mean, we all see how the Braves don't draw anything until October.
Yeah, for a team that's always been.
Jack, also they've got a great farm system there for the soccer team, with all of those parents just dumping their kids off at soccer practice, so they don't have to, bring their kids up. So you've got generations of kids who will go to these games.
There you go. Patrick taking shots at the suburban moms in Marietta.
No, he's right though. He's right, because everybody plays soccer. So they grow up there. And
trust me, I've got a lot of experience in the Marietta.
Well, it doesn't work in every market. I mean, Chicago. A couple of years ago, I was at a Sounders Fire match in Chicago, and there were more of us supporting Seattle than there were Chicago fans in the whole stadium.
Yeah. We don't need to make the show an indictment on Atlanta here. Let's move on to the finals. Before we do that, though, Dad,
that's fun.
Yeah, I
guess. We're trying to endear ourselves to Atlanta.
Atlanta sucks. Yeah, I like it.
I like indicting Atlanta.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Well, Dad was basically
except for my radio station there, WMLB AM.
I was about to say, aren't we on in Atlanta? That seems unwise.
Yeah, AM 1690. Other than that, we hate the Braves.
Yeah, he's just mad because the Braves beat the Astros in the World Series, and then he got
not only the World Series, but they beat us. They beat us in playoff after playoff. You were at those games.
I don't want to talk about this anymore. Go ahead and tell us about Ignite 45 so we can get to James.
I tell you what, if you own a small business and you're not leveraging your social media, you're crazy. So that's why we love Ignite 45. Go to ignite45.com. If you're a small business owner, you're a plumber, heating and air, you're a contractor, anything, you got to have a web presence. You got to have some social media. You got to have SEO. This is just now part of the game, right? You got to be in the game. Like we are here at Godzilla Wins. Go to GodzillaWins.com. But what Ignacio has did is he set this company up for small business owners. And the thing is, he's going to do a complete review of your website, your social media, get back to you with a plan to maximize that and grow your revenue. And then you take it from there. There's no obligation. So if nothing else, you're going to get a complete analysis of your social media and how you can make more money and how you can leverage it. And there's no obligation. Just go to ignite45.com, ignite45.com, put in promo code Godzilla. And if you do engage, you're going to get $100 off whatever your first order is. That's what we did. He did an analysis. The guy's great to work with, very thorough, but you have nothing to lose except go to his website and get a presentation done and see where you're at, ignite45.com.
And we want to thank Ignacio for partnering with us here. So we want to welcome James Tillman III to talk a little bit of NBA finals here with us. We got about 10 minutes to do a little finals. James, I want to start just before we kind of get to your pick and what you think about game two. Just recap game one for us. The Nuggets covered the spread there. I think they won by 11. Seemed sort of like a dominant performance. What went wrong for the Heat in game one?
Oh, yeah, I would agree with you, even though the final margin was by 11. The Nuggets looked completely in control from the start. I mean, at the start of the third and the fourth quarters, Miami made a run and to kind of make the final margin like respectable. But from what I was observing, there was never any doubt for me, even though I thought Miami would cover the spread because I thought that was kind of a huge, spread that they were giving Denver, 9 points, which, by the way, they're also going to have the same spread for game two. So first off, I'd say that Miami did look tired. It looked like that there was a game 7 carryover from beating Boston. They probably would have benefited putting that series away a lot sooner than they did, rather than having it go 7-0 in the first 3 games. But I think that one of the things that went wrong for Miami, Butler didn't look like himself as far as being aggressive goes, as far as from aggression goes, because when he's looking for his shot and the defense has to kind of game plan for him, he is able to produce shot opportunities for some of their shooters on the floor. So I think that was one thing. And while Bam Adebayo did have a great game, I want to say 26, 13, and 5. I'm not sure if I want to have him with a usage rate of 30% being your center compared to Butler at 18%. So, and even though that Miami was, I want to say 27th ranked 3-point shooting team during the regular season, they're number 1 right now in the playoffs at 38.7. And a few of their guys, Strus, Martin, and Robinson, they were combined 2 for 23 from 3-point range. So those things combined definitely contributed to them losing game 1.
James, does the addition of Tyler Hero help the Heat at all? I mean, in the way I kind of think about this is if the Heat can't control some of the pace, and they can't outscore Denver, then they're just not going to win. They defensively, they've always been just an incredible defensive team, but Nikola Jokic is one of the most difficult, if not the most difficult player in the NBA to stop. And then not only that, because he's so dangerous with his shot, he opens up the floor and is able to create opportunities for other guys. He's patient, and he would probably rather give the ball to Murray or create an easier opportunity than take a shot that you can't really contest because he's so big, but a shot that might be a little bit lower percentage for him. Does the addition of Hero help the Heat quicken the pace and score more, or is this series over in 5?
Oh, well, obviously he's been out for a little bit now, so I guess it would depend on what he looks like should he return to the Heat rotation. But as you mentioned, I mean, Jokic at halftime, he had 10 assists. That's crazy. At halftime, he had only taken 3 shots and he had a double-double. And he finished with 14 assists for the game. So it's like he's one of those players that's difficult to control because he can impact the game in so many ways, even when he's not scoring. So that they definitely have their hands full with that. So you almost want to say, do you want to let Jokic beat you and see how we can contain the rest, or do you want to keep trying to zone against them. I didn't think that zone looked all that great. They might tighten it up for game 2, but yeah, I definitely think they have their hands full with Jokic. And I'm gonna, before I go as far as declaring the series over in 5, I want to see how what Miami comes out with in game 2.
Well, and the problem with the series ending in 5 is the Nuggets struggle mightily when they're not in Denver. I don't get into the altitude stuff or whatever. I think that whatever, like these guys are professional athletes. They can play anywhere. But Denver they struggle mightily when they're on the road. Miami, when they get back to Miami, that is a live environment. They do play well in Miami. So, we'll see. For game 2, James, we've got pretty much the same line as game 1. Heat plus 8.5. Over under is 215. And then we've got the money line at Heat plus 300 minus 365. James, I'll go with you first, then we'll kind of go around the horn and get our picks for game 2.
I'm going to take the spread there. I'm going with Miami covering based on a belief that they're going to come out to be more aggressive than they were. I mean, 2 free throws for an entire game isn't going to get it. I believe that's an all-time finals low. So, and again, I don't think you're going to beat many teams with just 2 free throw attempts, let alone against a Denver team that's rolling right now.
Yeah, Dad, what do you think?
I'm going to bet Denver minus the 8.5. Heat didn't show me anything that they can actually compete with this team on the road. It looks like a lot, but when you looked at that game, the first game 2 nights ago, there was never a doubt that Denver was going to win that game. So to me, when you're laying these kind of spreads, kind of the same in football, if I don't think the team that I'm betting as the underdog can win the game, I don't take the 5 or the 6 or the 7 if I don't think they can win. I don't see Miami winning this game. I'm going to lay the 8.5.
Nate, we've talked Dad off that ledge 100 times. His the dumbest analysis. If they can't win the game, then I'm not gonna take the points, which is the whole point of taking the points is because
You don't think they can win the game.
Yeah, it's the most backwards way of thinking about a spread. Who do you like in this game, Nate?
I actually kind of like the total in this game. I like it to go over 215. I mean, I think that Miami saw what happens when they're a little bit sort of passive. I don't think they'll shoot that bad from 3 again, for sure. And I think that Jimmy Butler's going to hunt his shot a little bit more, which will open things up. I think their only chance is they kind of, Miami typically would prefer to play sort of a lower scoring grinded out game, but I just don't know if that's going to work against Denver. I think they kind of need to speed things up, which, may or may not go in their favor, but at this point, it should be clear to them that they're probably a little bit overmatched and they need to sort of increase the sort of volatility of the game by sort of pushing the pace maybe a little bit more, taking a few more risks. So 215 just feels like a little bit low to me. And what's probably going to feel like a pretty desperate game for Miami. I mean, they don't want to go down 0-2 for sure. So 215, it was a low scoring game last game. I feel like the total came down a few points and now I think it's just a little bit too low.
Yeah. So the issue with the total is, like James said, I mean, and James, I don't know how you feel about this, but to me, Butler's usage rate is going to be 35% tonight. And most likely he's going to, if he has a good game, he's going to go off 35, 40 points. And if the Nuggets feel pressed, Jokic is going to go off for 40 points. And then all of a sudden you've got a high scoring game and you get the benefit of the Heat defense to keep those totals low. So I think the over is kind of an interesting play there. Before we get to Nate's conversation with one of his touts, James, I know you do a lot of the player prop stuff. So do you have a player prop bet for this game?
I don't have one up or right in front of me, but again, I would go with the player prop I would be looking at is Jimmy Butler. Even dating back to the Boston series, his player prop has been ranging from 26.5 to 28.5. So if we're operating from that preference, I would, being that he absolutely has to have a great game in order to tie this series up, because I don't think you want to go down 0-2 there. So I would definitely say if it's within that range, I would definitely go with the over there.
Yeah, I I'll pull up his over here, and I think I have it up 25.5. So I'm with you there. Because for that Boston series, it was about 28.5. So you're shaving off a couple points. Okay, so Dan or Patrick, you got a pick for us. Then we'll move on to Nate's story here.
I'm thinking I'm going to go with Denver, because at any moment a thing could come up and half the Heat won't show up because they've got something better to do. So that's just my pick. I'm going with Denver. I will always bet against the Heat. I will always bet against the Panthers. I will always bet against the Dolphins. It's just the way I've grown up. I've seen them slack my whole life, and I don't see why they would change now.
Dan, I know you're not a basketball guy, but you got a pick.
I'm a college basketball guy, but
Yeah, NBA. Sorry.
yeah, I'm with Nate here. I think the over is the way to go. Michael Porter Jr. only shot 2 for 11 from deep in the first game, and that's probably not going to repeat itself. I think Nate's right that Miami will get more aggressive. So yeah, I think over 215 points makes a lot of sense here.
Okay, so seems like we're kind of all over the board here. Should be an interesting game. We'll see what happens in game 2. So Nate,
Jack, what's your pick?
Probably the over at 215. And I'm not messing with the spread. I mean, I'm just not. So I'd go with the over at 215. Okay, so Nate, let's go to a little story time here. Earlier, we were talking about some of the different types of touts, the ones we used to hear on the radio all the time. You get text messages from these guys in Nevada constantly, and I know sometimes you engage just for fun. Sometimes you don't have any choice but to engage because they text you every 10 minutes. So if you could just, if you have one up, if you could just end the show by reading a conversation that you've had with one of these touts.
And this is pretty much what like sports radio sounds like when we talk about like tout radio. It's basically like this guy on the radio all the time. So on Tuesday, May 16th at 11:18 a.m., Sonny texts me, I'm going to prove to you that when I say a game is going to win, it does. I specialize in helping people who have previously dealt with handicappers that didn't deliver. I don't handicap. Handicapping doesn't work. I deal in proven information. I'm positive we're going to win this game. Respond 888. I'll text it for free. I did not respond. Tuesday, May 16th at 12:30. So an hour later. It's your last chance. I have 1 foot out the door. Everyone's on the game but you. My information on Lakers Denver is dead on. I don't want a single penny. I just want to earn your trust and show you that winning information does exist. This game is a winner. Send 888. I'll text it immediately. Still did not respond. At 12:47, 15 minutes later, the over on the LA Lakers Denver game is our move. I love this play. When I have another move that I'm very sure will win again, I'll text it to you absolutely free as well, Sonny. And it's always a guy named Sonny or Tony or Sal.
Hey!
It's always one of those 3 names.
And then what'll end up happening when they lose is they'll text Nate and be like, last night I got the wrong information.
Yeah.
I want to personally apologize for the horrible play. But
I'm
today,
sending you this next winner for absolutely nothing. Yeah.
because it's not about handicapping, Nate. It's about earning your trust.
And helping people.
Handicapping doesn't work.
Handicapping doesn't work. Yeah. These guys text Nate, I mean, constantly because he's on some sort of like master list for degenerates and
Do you ever respond to these, Nate?
Sometimes. Yeah. Sometimes I do just see what they're doing. I've never actually bet one game that they've recommended, but sometimes I just like see what they're up to and I'm bored.
Too funny.
Dad, if you'll tell us about Rosie's Gaming Emporium and then take us out.
Baby, Rosie's Gaming Emporium in Virginia, 6 locations. They got Dumfries in Northern Virginia, Vinton just outside of Roanoke, Emporia, which is coming, not open yet. They got Collinsville outside of Danville, Richmond right by our studio, New Kent, which is where Colonial Downs is in Hampton. They're rocking and rolling. Right now, they've given over $500 million in jackpots. Here's the fun thing. It's so much fun there. It's just the atmosphere is great. What they've been able to build in culture, my good friend, the direct VP of marketing, Nate Mize, it's just, it's a fun place. And so here's what they're doing now. If you don't have a Rosie's card, you go in there in Virginia, you get a Rosie's card, you're going to get between $25 and $1,000 in free play right off the bat. So have some fun. Don't spend anything. The food is excellent. It's a great place to take your date, or if you're married, date night like I do. Mom loves to go there. It's her favorite place. We have so much fun. And all you got to do is go to rosiesgaming.com, rosiesgaming.com, get more information. Plus, horse racing launching July 13th, Colonial Downs in New Kent. We're moving our entire TV and radio operation there from July 13th to September 9th. We're going to be in our suite right adjacent, right over the finish line for what is that, a 6-week meet or 7-week meet, whatever it is, how many ever weeks that is. We're there the whole time, Monday to Saturday, post time, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Get your tickets now. Come to our suite. Check us out. Jack and Nate, you got to go for a week there. We're going to have so much fun. Do our show there on Saturday. Horse racing galore. Go to rosiesgaming.com.
Dad, what's the number you can call in Virginia if you have a problem?
Okay, that's really easy to do. If you have a problem gambling, all you have to do is call the Virginia Gambling Hotline, 1-800-532-3500.
Thank you so much. And we want to thank our contributors. Want to thank James Tillman III and Dan Angell for coming on as always and giving us their expertise on their respective sports. Patrick, thank you for everything you do for us and all the fight stuff. And we always want to thank Nate, who ran to the bathroom. So we will be back next week with another loaded show. Thanks everyone for listening. You will, next is the War Room.
Stephen K. Bannon in the War Room is next. Patrick, you got to get a Skype. See you next week.
See ya.